Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen demands to live in OP's house. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my sister's family live in my house after they sold theirs for a dream vacation? So I, 32 male, own a modest 3-bedroom house that I've been paying off for the last 10 years. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine and I'm proud of it. My sister, who's 29, and her husband, who's 31, are the typical free-spirited types. They've always talked about quitting the rat race and living life to the fullest, all that. Well, a few months ago, they finally did it. They sold their house during a booming market, thinking the profit would fund a year-long break to travel. They believed that they could stretch the money by traveling cheaply, staying in hostels or Airbnbs, and getting by with occasional odd jobs. At first, they stayed in nicer places and went out to eat a lot, thinking they had plenty of cushion, but within 2 months, they were out of money. They underestimated how quickly expenses would pile up, especially with 2 kids, who are 7 and 5, to feed and take care of. Now that their funds are drained, they've decided to stop full-time travel but don't want to settle down yet. Instead, they asked to live with me rent-free for the next 10 months while they figure things out. They say they'll still try to take some occasional trips if they find super cheap deals, but for the most part, they want to stay at my house. I told them no, my house isn't big enough. I don't want the disruption, and I certainly don't think it's fair for them to live off me because their plan failed. I offered to help them find an affordable rental or even cover part of their expenses for a couple of months so they could get back on their feet, but that wasn't enough. My sister blew up at me, calling me selfish and accusing me of being jealous of their adventurous lifestyle. To make it worse, my parents are siding with her, saying that family should help family and that I'm being too rigid. The thing is, my parents live in a small apartment and they can't take in my sister's family, which is probably why they're pushing her on me. They said that I don't understand the value of experiences and that I should be more supportive. Some of our mutual friends are also saying I should be more understanding, but I think it's completely unreasonable to expect me to house their whole family for nearly a year just because they didn't plan properly. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You didn't sign up to be a hotel for your sister's impulsive decisions. Let them enjoy their dream vacation while you enjoy the peace and quiet of your own home. Am I the jerk for not cooking all my parents' meals while they were visiting me? For context, I live with my fiance in a different country than my family. I haven't seen them in over a year, so my parents, who are 61 and 63, offered to visit me. I was beyond happy. My parents come from very humble beginnings in a third-world country, and this was their first time traveling internationally. I wanted everything to go smoothly, so I made sure to arrange all their necessities. They stayed in our home for about a month with their own bedroom and bathroom. Even though we're not rich, my fiance and I tried to provide everything for them so they wouldn't have to spend money, as the currency here is 5 times stronger than their own. Our eating habits are a bit unconventional. My fiance and I have different diets and schedules, so we don't eat together. We usually go to the kitchen and grab food when we're hungry, and I explained this to my parents. I told them they were free to cook or grab anything they wanted from the kitchen. As time went on, we noticed my parents didn't seem to be eating much, so I repeatedly asked them what they wanted from the grocery store. Each time, they assured me that they were eating while I was working and everything was going fine. I even had my fiance take my dad to the store and tell him to grab anything that he wanted, but he only got a few items. This pattern continued throughout their stay. To make sure they were eating, I started taking them out for dinner almost every night after work, which really strained our budget. Still, they told me that they had a great time and they left saying they loved their stay. However, a few days later, my sister, who's 40, called me, furious. She told me my parents said they didn't have enough food to eat, that they couldn't touch anything in our fridge because they believed it was ours, and that they spent a lot of money making trips to the convenience store to buy food for themselves. I was blindsided. I had asked them multiple times if they needed anything and took their word when they said everything was fine. My sister accused me of not being attentive to their needs and said I acted like I didn't care, which left me feeling awful. I'm now worried that my parents were miserable during their stay, while I thought everything was going okay. I haven't brought this up to my fiance because he genuinely tried his best to make my parents happy, and this news would devastate him. I keep wondering if I should have done more or been more observant. What more could I have done? Did you see them go to the grocery store? OP: Yes, my dad smokes, so I thought he was going to buy cigarettes. My mom said that she liked to take walks to the park nearby, so I assumed that that's where they were going. Did you ask them if they were eating? Yes, I asked them multiple times. They assured me that they ate things like sandwiches, eggs, and pasta, and they said that they cleaned the kitchen before I could see it. Update: I finally got in touch with my mom, who's usually the more level-headed one in the family. I asked her what led to my sister's strong reaction. It turns out my sister did blow things out of proportion, but there's more to it. My mom explained that my dad, in particular, has a strong feeling of inadequacy, which I've known about but didn't expect to become a problem during their visit. Essentially, my dad didn't feel like he deserved any of the things we were doing for them, which is why he chose to buy junk food instead of eating the quality food we provided. My dad has struggled with self-esteem issues his entire life. He's very overweight, smokes, and is a functional alcoholic. My fiance and I are fitness-oriented, so we even paid for a gym membership for both of my parents. They initially said they wanted it, but my dad only went a few times. I also noticed he smoked more than usual and was buying beer every week. I think this trip brought up a lot of complicated emotions for him. My mom explained that my dad never imagined he would travel internationally, and this triggered feelings that made it hard for him to connect with us. My sister assumed I had somehow mistreated him or made him feel that way, but my mom assured me that that wasn't true. She even apologized for not talking to me sooner and regretted letting my sister get involved. It wasn't about the food, it was about my dad's internal struggles and his inferiority complex. He distanced himself because he feels like an outsider now that I've moved on from the poverty we once shared. I'm still processing all of this, and I'll probably need some therapy sessions to fully understand and cope with the situation. Thank you to everyone who read and offered advice. It's helped me make sense of things. Am I the jerk for not telling my friends I'm technically our landlord? So I, 18 female, am very lucky to have two hardworking parents who are successful and love me. We aren't mega wealthy, but we are very comfortable because my parents are extremely smart financially. We own multiple houses as part of our real estate portfolio, which we rent out for extra income. I recently started college, and as a reward for working hard and getting into my dream school, my parents gifted me one of our houses near my college. I was going to inherit all of them anyway, but I really appreciated the gesture. Where I live, real estate law is a little tricky, and we would have to pay significant taxes to officially transfer the house to me, so we decided my parents would retain legal ownership for now. The house is pretty big, with 4 floors, including a fully furnished basement and a roomy attic. Since it's near my school, I decided to look for roommates so I could start earning money early. So far, I have 2 roommates who we'll call Sasha and B, who also go to my school. We've been living together for a couple of months now. They moved in around August, and we're all pretty good friends and very compatible roommates. This is where I might be the jerk. I didn't want to tell them that I own the house because I thought it might create a weird dynamic between us, and I didn't want them to view me any differently. We split the bills and rent, with me technically paying nothing. Since my father legally owns the house and we have different surnames, I took my mother's last name. They have no idea I own the house or that my dad just sends the money back to me. Sasha recently found the money my dad sent back while I was in class and told B, and they cornered me about it a few days ago. I told them everything, and they're mad at me for hiding this from them. They think I'm not only wrong for keeping it a secret, but also for making them pay rent in the first place. The mortgage on the house has already been paid off, so the rent goes entirely into my pocket. I responded by saying they shouldn't have gone through my mail in the first place and that it was illegal, which I'll admit was kind of a low blow. We weren't friends when they moved in, and the whole point of having roommates was so I could earn extra cash, so I don't see why I should let them live rent-free. Am I the jerk here? Edit. People in the comments were asking about the mail situation. Basically, whoever is home brings in all the mail and puts it on the kitchen island. B brought the mail in, but Sasha opened my mail before I got home. My dad doesn't send me straight up cash. He mails 2 checks with the amount Sasha and B paid. When Sasha saw the checks from the landlord to me with the exact amount of her and B's rent, she put 2 and 2 together and interrogated me when I got home. I don't know why she opened my mail in the first place. I've never noticed her snooping before, but maybe she has and I just didn't see. Edit 2. Yes, I know the assets aren't technically mine, but I have unlimited access to them and will inherit all of them one day. My parents have told me this directly, it's not an assumption. My parents consider them equally mine, so I consider them mine as well. I didn't earn them, I was just lucky enough to be born to amazing parents, and I'm grateful for that. Generic comment about evil landlords. OP's response. B and Sasha are not poor, and I'm not charging way above market price. If they felt the price was too steep, they could dorm, which is actually cheaper, or find a cheaper place. They're paying extra for luxury. I'm not exploiting broke college kids. Why we use checks instead of e-banking. I do all of my business online, but my dad bought a fancy custom mailbox, and he's trying, and failing, to convince my mom that it wasn't a waste. So now he likes to mail everything. I get letters instead of texts. Yes, it's ridiculous, and after this incident, we'll definitely be doing our finances online only. I maintain that I'm not mega rich. Yes, I acknowledge that I'm extremely privileged compared to most Americans, but in my mind, mega rich means people like my boyfriend's family who own actual mansions and have yachts, or celebrities and billionaires with private jets, etc. Compared to most of my friends, I'm middle class. Why I changed my last name despite being on good terms with my father. My parents are both British Indian immigrants, and my dad has a super ethnic and long, hard to pronounce last name, whereas my mom has a nice, short, and cute last name. When I apply for jobs, people will judge me based on my name, and I don't want that. My dad faced that, and I grew up in a predominantly white community, so I know people's perception of you changes based on how American you are perceived to be. Also, my mom went through labor and 9 months of pregnancy. She deserves to have her last name continued. Not the jerk. But stop saying you aren't mega wealthy. You were given a 4-story house in a college city as a graduation gift, and enough income that you can afford to live in a house like that with only 2 roommates. Your family is absolutely wealthy, and your attempts at trying to be humble make my teeth itch. I'm saying this because recognizing you are wealthy is an important part of you looking to change your viewing these sorts of interactions. Not the jerk. They don't have a leg to stand on. Just because you're extremely privileged does not mean they should get to live rent-free. But I agree with the poster above. You are extremely out of touch and tone deaf. Only mega-rich people use terms like our real estate portfolio. Only very wealthy people own multiple homes mortgage-free, and renting out a house your parents gave you is not exactly earning money, even if it is going into your pocket, as you say. I'd stop using terms like we own and our real estate portfolio that we rent out. Your parents own all of this property, maybe except the house that they gave you. We're not mega wealthy? No, you were just gifted a mansion for going to school. Buzz off with that BS. You probably should have told them if you planned on either living with them for an extended period of time or becoming friends with them. As someone who's lived with plenty of roommates over the years, the worst ones have always been the liars and manipulators. You're young, so you have time to learn and grow up and just be straight up with people. Your roommates seem entitled. Yes, they should have to pay. And you seem like you think you're humble, but you aren't. You're not a jerk for charging them rent, but you are the jerk for lying to them. Living with a landlord is different than living with an equal roommate, and they deserve the chance to decide if they want to do that. Stop lying to yourself. You are mega wealthy. That said, not the jerk. Your roommates are entitled to think they deserve a place rent-free. In the future, it would probably be better to just be honest that you own the house. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her roommates? Please let us know. Secrets are never forever. We have 2 kids, a son who's 27 and a daughter who's 30. We have 4 grandkids. We've been married for 32 years. I want to keep this as short as possible, but I'm so scared of what's going to happen to our lives now that this secret has come out. My son came and saw me a week ago. My husband was at work. We sat down and I knew something was wrong and I was concerned for him. I told him to just tell me what the problem was and we would sort through whatever it was. He said he didn't know how to start, so he'll just put it all on the table and see what I had to say. I was getting very concerned at this stage, never thinking that what he would tell me could destroy our lives. My son told me that he took an ancestry DNA test because, like his dad, he was interested in genealogy and he wanted his kids to know where they came from in the history. It still hadn't clicked at that stage. I thought that it came back with a medical issue that may be present and express my thoughts. No, Mom, he said, that's not the problem. The problem is that Dad has no common DNA. I started shaking and I went into shock. He asked if his dad knows. I told him no, I didn't know until now. The secret I had kept for 28 years is no longer a secret. I knew that my son could have been the product of a mistake I had made early on in my marriage, but when he was born, he looked so much like his dad and I that I dismissed it and convinced myself he was his. The mistake/bad choice was when we were going through a tough time with my husband working long hours and we were struggling to get a deposit for a house. We were also trying for a second baby. One of my husband's friends was in our lives as he was going through a breakup and we were trying to be supportive. My husband was at work and his friend and I were drinking and just talking about life. We got drunk and yes, we hooked up. I can't even remember it, and the next morning his friend and I were mortified and I vowed never to bring it up again. It was such a long time ago, I cannot even really remember it. I dismissed it as a one-time mistake and have never been tempted to cheat again. Well, I got pregnant and here we are. My husband is such a loving man, and our marriage has always been strong. My son wants me to tell him, as he will find out soon enough through ancestry. How do I proceed? I'm disgusted that this is going to destroy my husband, my entire family. I know I was a jerk back then for what I did. I can't erase that. But the hurt that we are all going to go through, I can't fathom. My husband is not found out yet, but I have to tell him before he finds out. So, when your husband finds out, it's important to remember that for him, it didn't happen 30 years ago. For him, it happened when he found out, and anything you say to the contrary is basically invalidating that. Any kind of credit you think you've built up since then isn't real. It's in your head only. From your husband's perspective, this is something that just happened. Be respectful of that. I would mentally prepare for a divorce, honestly. This isn't just a small mistake, this is a disaster. This man is going to feel emotions he's never felt before. Godspeed, I guess. 28 years ago or 28 minutes ago will make no difference to him. However he reacts, he is entitled to. I, 23 female, stopped relying on my husband who's 25, and I think it's making things worse. My husband, despite multiple discussions over the past 2 years, never takes initiative with chores or anything in our lives. I'm constantly the one reminding him and asking him to do things, and when I don't, it doesn't get done. He told me he started hating me because of it about 6 months ago, so we both agreed that I would stop telling him what to do as long as he started following through on his promises. I followed up on my end of the promise, but he didn't within a few days. We agreed that since I wake up first to work out and then make breakfast, he would wake up with our kid and take her to daycare before work. After work, I pick up our kid, make dinner, and manage the bedtime routine while he cleans the kitchen. Every single day, I walk out after bedtime to find the kitchen not touched. It's so disappointing and hurtful. Usually I get upset and tell him that I really want the kitchen cleaned every day, but he just brushes me off, saying he will do it in the morning, which he does about 25% of the time. Since we had the agreement, I stopped reminding him. I pretended to ignore the mess and would get ready for bed because by then, I would have to get up in 7 hours. I let him be responsible for the mess because that's what we agreed on. 2 months later, our kitchen was always a mess. We constantly had molded food on the stove, crumbs everywhere on the floor. So I gave up and started cleaning whenever I had time. I learned to cook and clean at the same time, which was stressful with a kid, but I managed. Most of the time, there were a week's worth of dishes to do, and we have no dishwasher, so it took me a long time to catch up on washing the dishes. After bedtime, I was usually the only one cleaning while he laid in bed, even though I woke up 2 hours before he did. He would yell at me about how I let the dishes get too smelly whenever he did wash them, even though he agreed he was responsible for cleaning after dinner. I stopped relying on him and started taking care of everything on my own. It's been 2 months of that mindset, and I find it harder to respect him now. He seems like a kid to me, always complaining and never putting in effort. He's always too tired and grumpy. Today, I was very excited because my husband brought up the idea of a movie night date. He never brings up date ideas or plans them, so it made me hopeful. He said he would rent a movie, and after bedtime we would watch it. I made a fancier dinner and put our kid to sleep. It took a little longer than usual, but I was fine with it because I figured he would clean today so we could have our movie night. I was wrong. He didn't even bother to close the lids on the pans or the stove. He just turned off the lights in the kitchen. It felt like my heart broke, and I cleaned the kitchen myself again. He walked out, didn't say a word, and watched YouTube videos at the counter. Once I was done cleaning, we went to the bedroom, and he just laid down and went to sleep. It hurt so much. I was so hopeful this time. He gets mad at me that I don't treat him like a man, but he never shows me that he's reliable. I'm always hurt by his actions. Anyway, any advice on what I should do? He got what he wanted. He didn't want chores. You're doing them now for him. OP is working, raising the kids, and taking care of the home while he has no problem adding to her workload and showing no appreciation. This is the off-ramp to divorce town. It's way easier to be a divorced single mom than a married one. One big baby less to take care of makes so much difference. At this point, you should ask yourself, would your life be easier without him in it? Why are you staying in this relationship? What are you getting out of it that makes putting up with this behavior worth it? Right now, he's leaving everything to you, acting like the world's worst roommate. So treat him like one. Clean up after yourself and your kid, cook for yourself and your kid, and provide for yourself and your kid. I, 32 male, love my wife who's 30 as a person, but she's completely dependent on me, and I can no longer handle her as a spouse. I've been married to my wife for 8 years. We've always gotten along spectacularly from a social standpoint. Unfortunately, she came from a difficult home life when we met. She moved in with me after about 8 months of dating, partially just to escape what she was enduring. But that was fine. I was starting out a career after college, and having the company was really meaningful to me. During these first few months, we tried to take steps to get her help. She started therapy, and we tried to get her on anxiety meds. At the same time, she was still depending on her parents for medical insurance, and her parents began to forget to provide her meds, including important things like inhalers for her asthma. Due to being far behind on life experience because of her parents, she was in no state to work. So we made the decision to get married much earlier than planned so she could be on my health insurance. It was a small courthouse ceremony, which we were fine with. We continued getting her care, but I noticed that things never changed. She would have days where she just felt so off that she couldn't get out of bed. Other days, she's stuck in the bathroom all day. Her sleep schedule drifted all over the place. We would try to go out and do things, and she'd have to back out because she felt sick. There was always something standing in the way of her becoming a functional member of society. We kept looking into these problems. Now that she had reliable medical care, she continued to be diagnosed with more and more chronic conditions. As of writing, she has been found to have CPTSD, depression, ADHD, PCOS, IBS, AERD, asthma, and psoriasis. This list just kept growing, and it seemed like getting her into a functional state was impossible. But she was finding out what was wrong and attempting treatment. That was good. I was willing to be patient with her and help her get better. I've always made enough money to support both of us. Overall, we live very comfortably. We hope to work through the issues, live a quiet life for now, and eventually have more adventures when her conditions were managed. But here we are 8 years later, and things look almost exactly the same. Basically, her whole life is within the bounds of the house. She gets up at whatever random hour she wakes up, lays in bed for a while watching videos on her phone, moves to the living room, and either plays video games on her computer or lays on the couch and watches YouTube on the TV or reads things online on her phone. When I'm out there, we'll hang out and talk. Sometimes we play games or watch videos together. She'll move between the couch and computer a few times. Sometimes she's on a voice call with some friends. Then the day's over whenever she feels tired or sick and she goes back to bed. That's it, every single day. She wears the same outfits for days at a time when she bothers to wear clothes, and showers once a month at most. I've tried to encourage her to take more, but she claims that it takes so much energy out of her to do so, and that you're not supposed to shower every day anyway. Sometimes the burden on her does seem to be true, or she's struggling afterward due to the heat or whatnot, but I think she doesn't give herself enough credit either. She definitely was a lot better at the beginning with that, maybe not every day, but most days. Needless to say, she tends to have a stench. Of course, if someone is visiting, she's able to force herself to take a shower or uses enough dry shampoo to cover the smell. She doesn't do chores around the house, even when I've split them up with her and giving specific simple tasks. For instance, I give her something small like emptying the garbage cans in the bathrooms when they get full. Instead, she just lets them overflow and claims she forgets. Or maybe crushing pop cans for recycling. Oh, she's too tired to do that. The only place she cleans is her desk, and only when company is visiting. The way I interpret her failure to do things is like she has become ridiculously risk-averse. If there's even the slight possibility she won't be able to complete something, she won't start it. And when she does start it, that fear of not finishing makes her sick and then fulfills the prophecy. So she keeps doing less and less and never wants to expand her horizons. Trying to do things outside the house with her is like pulling teeth. Medical appointments she's fine with, but dinner dates? The best we can do is cheap fast food, and she'll probably want to leave as quickly as possible, if she's even up to going there in the first place. Usually, she'd rather I just pick it up in the drive-thru and bring it home. Visiting family for holidays is a nightmare. She's always looking for an excuse not to go, and if we're there, I have to keep an eye on her the whole time to make sure she's okay. She'll constantly text me asking when we're going to leave, so I end up cutting things short. I have better family visits when I just go on my own, but then everyone asks why she's not there. Regardless of the event though, I have to prepare her days in advance, constant reminders, trying to force her to realign her sleep schedule, and waking her up for things. She refuses to use alarms, making sure she showers. I can't even get her to take walks. It's too hot, it's too cold, too many bugs, too sunny, you name it. I've asked her before what happened to our plans from before, but now she says that she isn't really all that interested in going out and doing things. Neither of us are social butterflies, but based on how we talked in the early days, I thought she'd at least want to go on trips with just the two of us. You know, see some museums, some natural wonders, silly tourist traps, that kind of thing. Or on a less significant note, just going to local events. I like having these special moments and sharing them, not all the time, but enough to be significant. Instead, now my life is starting to mirror hers. I'm always at home, I don't go out, just doing stuff on the computer all day. Doing things on my own is an option, and I have, but the sharing of it is a big part of the enjoyment to me. I only have a few local friends, having moved to this area as an adult for work, and a lot of times they aren't able to do things with me because, as we get into our 30s, it's stuff they'd rather do with their own partners and kids. The problem is, as long as we're just at home hanging out, having fun, and talking to each other, everything is great, and because we're home a lot, it ends up masking some of the issues. We get along so well in that respect and have a deep comfort with each other, just being ourselves, warts and all. We very rarely argue. She's never mean to me, and she's always thankful for what I do. She always seemed well-intentioned, and while I'm not the best at reading people, she always appears genuine to me. But I can no longer see us doing anything more than being at home. No trips, no special events, no accomplishing things together. I can barely even picture us cooking dinner together. Whether it actually is her health or issues, or just some kind of internal unwillingness to grow, it's apparent that she isn't growing with me and probably never will. I know I've unintentionally enabled her this whole time. It's been the path of least resistance as I navigate the challenge of life and my own personal struggles. I haven't been able to decisively put my foot down. Every time I do, I end up backing off. When I have tried to have discussions about this, it always ends the same way. She starts crying, claims she's trying her best, and goes mute for days. So of course, I stop trying to fight her. What's the point? I already know how it's going to end. Obviously, there's a mental health component here. Maybe her issues really did break something inside her. Unfortunately, she seems resistant to treatment. Not as in she won't get treatment, but that none of the treatments are doing anything. She's been trying different medications for years now with nothing making her budge, with the exception of finally eliminating most of her nightmares, which is a good thing. She goes to therapy, but that doesn't seem to help either. Last year, I noticed my own executive function declining and sought help. During that time, I did a lot of introspection as well. I suddenly realized just how messed up all this was. I tried to tell her that I had long-term doubts unless we could turn this around. It ended exactly as described above. We ended up trying couples therapy, which brought many good ideas to the table and reminded us of the idea of compromise. Maybe I can't get everything I want, but she can rise a bit to meet me in the middle. We tried to better divide chores, tried to commit to doing things more often, trying to get her to shower even just once a week. She said that she was committed to meeting me halfway and trying to become more active in the relationship, but the momentum only lasted about a month before things collapsed. Now it's back to I'm doing my best and me conceding. I know that there are things I'm getting out of this relationship. I value her presence, someone to talk to and share ideas and feelings with. She's an emotional support rock for me, and she's the person who best understands me and how I think and feel. She offers companionship and entertainment, but beyond all that, it feels like there's little to this relationship. I feel bad for saying that because I know many people would love to have someone who even offers that much, so I've wrestled with it internally thinking, am I being unreasonable? But no matter what, I keep circling back to the same answer. So here's the question, can I salvage this? Is there a reality where I'm not sacrificing more than I should? I don't generally advocate for ultimatums, but I think it's time for her to take any amount of responsibility. Tell her, so I love you, but I can't live like this anymore. I need to see you step up over the next 12 months or we will be divorcing. Let her throw a temper tantrum. If she doesn't make ongoing changes, then you need to divorce her. You are the parent of a neat loser. You've given her literally every possible option to better herself and heal, and she refuses. You've been an incredible partner to her, and you deserve better. If you can't bring yourself to do it, just start going out and enjoying your life without her. Make friends, travel, go see shows and concerts, go to conventions. You don't need her for any of this. She can rot alone. My wife told me that I'm not our daughter's father. During a huge fight, my wife told me that I'm not our daughter's father. My wife and I have a 6-year-old daughter together. We've been married for almost 9 years. We got into a really big argument, which isn't unusual for us these days. We've been on the verge of divorce multiple times, but always end up changing our minds. This time, she got so mad that she yelled at the top of her lungs, "She's not even your daughter, and he was a better hookup too." She being our daughter, of course. My wife's facial expression told me immediately that she had realized what she had said. Then she claimed she was just mad and said it just to be mean. It's not true, blah blah blah. It made me start to think about when our daughter was conceived. We had been having marital problems even back then. We had actually kind of informally separated for a short time, and I was pretty sure I was done with the whole thing, but we both changed our minds. I can't help but wonder if she was with somebody else during that time. She could have just said what she said to be cruel, but that's a pretty serious thing to say. I'm looking at my daughter and wondering if features I thought she got from me really aren't for me at all. She looks so much like my wife that it's hard to see much of anyone else in her at all anyway. I love my daughter. I love being a dad, her dad. I feel like I was meant to do it. We have such a great relationship. She loves her mom, but my daughter and I just have a special bond that my wife has said that she's jealous of. That may be why she said what she did. I don't know. It wouldn't change how I felt about my daughter, but my wife would definitely no longer be my wife. It scares me to even think that somebody else could have some sort of parental right to my kid, even though I'm still legally her father regardless of DNA. It's not like a random guy is going to want to come along all these years later and try to establish paternity anyway, but it's still unsettling. I'm probably overthinking it, and my wife was most likely just trying to be extra cruel, which is her defense mechanism in arguments. But I just wish that I could stop thinking about it. True or false? I would not want to stay with a person who said that. She opened that door. Do the DNA test. You're avoiding the DNA test because you don't want to feel more crappy than you already do. The percentage of kids born from their moms cheating is actually extraordinarily high. I feel bad for you, man, but this sort of thing is incredibly common. The number of guys out there raising other men's children without even knowing is just insane. You've become a statistic, and I hope you learn from this. You shouldn't have stayed with her if she was problematic from the jump. Well, what do you think? Should OP get a DNA test or not? Please let us know. I don't care how evil someone is. Saying something like that? Dude, there's a reason she said it. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.